Hello, Internet. Welcome to the Power Hour, because it's
Welcome to what now?
been a second before I thought about it. To the Nerdsmith Power Hour. I'm Angela. This is Logan, and we are directors and creators at Nerdsmith, and we want to wish you a very happy Wednesday and a hopefully very happy lunch break or whatever time it is where you are. How are you doing, Logan?
I am great.
Wonderful to hear. I'm so happy. I am also doing quite well.
Good.
I am a little dim, so I'm gonna brighten my lamp. But in the meantime,
you are not.
I'm
No self-deprecating humor here.
There. Now I'm a closer shade of skin tone to yours, rather than a very.
Because we have to have the illusion that
gray
we're in
color.
the same place recording.
So yeah, I'm doing well. I am surrounded by junk
Books.
that I'm trying to clean. These are fake.
Oh, that's sad.
There's real books behind the fake books, though. There's just way less of them. And they don't take up the whole wall.
I don't have real stars behind my fake stars.
Oh, I just see green on my screen, so I just assume you're in a Jell-O mold.
Be right back.
And the rest of the half hour of our show is Logan making quickset Jell-O.
Jell-O, not jelly.
What
Jell-O.
is your opinion on quickset Jell-O?
Quickset Jell-O? I don't know what quickset Jell-O is, so that sounds like
any
an East Coast.
Jell-O. No, any Jell-O you buy, like brand name Jell-O, there is a slow way to make it and a fast way to make it on the box. The fast way to make it is you, instead of making you boil water, you pour that in, you boil a little less water than you normally would, you pour the powder in, and then you put a shit ton of ice cubes in it, and you stir it, and then you put it in the fridge. That apparently makes it set faster than leaving it overnight.
Sounds like it's cool as faster, but I've never, ever even heard of it, so I don't have an opinion.
Okay, never mind. You learned something new today, though.
I did.
My mission is complete. So, we had shenanigans last night. An excellent episode of shenanigans last night.
Boy, we're getting right into it today. All right.
I don't know. There's not that many people in chat, so I figured
All right, we'll just do what we want.
What do you want to talk about?
Screw it. Hi, whoever's here.
Peanut says hi.
Peanut.
There we go.
Perfect. Heath, welcome, sir.
Hi, Heath.
We're just rambling a little bit. About to start talking about shenanigans. Let us know if you want to talk about anything.
Heck yeah. I saw a thing today that was D&D related. I thought maybe not like, oh my god, you blew this shit wide open, but it was like a good reminder of in world building and encounter building specifically. Talked a little. They were making a little bit of a Heath. We got to get you on the show at some point to talk about professional DMing. What's that like?
Seriously, you should come on the show. Let us know when you've got a Wednesday free.
Getting paid to DM, as opposed to DMing and then
I've been doing this for 3 years. I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, right. No, so I don't remember offhand where I found it. But it was a comparison. It inevitably, when people write articles about what you can do with D&D, there's a really good chance they're going to do a comparison between 3.5 and 5, just because that's the generation gap in game systems. But they talked a little bit about this idea of delves being a thing in 3.5.
Delving?
So the idea of there being like a write-up of an encounter that it was just a little bit more combat focused in 3.5, and 5 sort of wandered away from that entirely, just sort of didn't provide those little chunks of encounter building that 3.5 apparently did. I haven't read it in so long, I don't remember.
So from my point of view, having been someone who has played since AD&D and has researched a lot into the history of D&D and stuff, D&D originally came from war games. That was the original design of these games. It was designed to be a way to explain the reasons behind the decisions you made on the battlefield. Because role-playing started reading through Gygax and all the original founders' histories. they would make decisions on the battlefields of historic battles, and they would wonder why these decisions would be made. Like, why would you do that? So they would role play out these decisions of the generals and the sergeants and things as they're doing them, just as a way to explain why they're making these decisions that they are. And then it kind of led into the fantasy idea, and then doing D&D, and like specifically hit points comes from naval
Yeah.
warfare, so
Battleship
it's
is an example
the
of hit points.
yeah, the idea of all or nothing hit points. Like, it doesn't matter, how much damage you do until that last point of damage is done, and then you're sunk, you're done. You have no debilitating effects until then. So all that comes from that history, and I think that's where the game is evolving away from, is this history of war games and the history of combat. We've got combat down. We know how to build encounters. We know how to do these things. I think that looking through some of the adventures and things, they do a lot of encounters individually, but they're more like moments. And I think D&D is grabbing onto that concept that I have adopted as well. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but this idea that every combat, every encounter should matter. I'm pretty sure I got it from Matt Mercer. This idea that every encounter should matter, that you shouldn't. I don't do random encounters anymore. If I do pretend to have random encounters, I might have 3 or 4 encounters, although somebody roll a d20, it'll just be 1 through 5, 6 through 10, and it looks like I've got a lot of random encounters, but the encounters actually, each one has a purpose. There's a reason why I want you to meet this person. There's a reason why I want you. Like one of the ones that I had, I think in Countless Heroes, was there was this wandering little troll type creature that had a cart, magic fairies, and he was a magic vendor. You guys were meant to have. As a kind of a wandering magic vendor that you guys never ended up really using until like towards the end. But he was around a couple times, and you guys were just so skeezed out by him, you decided not to deal with him, which fine, makes sense. But I think that's really what it is. It's just kind of this idea of stepping away from, a dungeon delve, is such a long process. It is so involved. It is very much kind of hinges on the DM versus the player mentality almost, or at least feeds into it. Maybe not hinges on, but feeds into it to the point where that's not something that I think the new people in charge of D&D want to create, that environment. So they have tried very hard to remove that mentality from the game. And I think that's where a lot of old school gamers run into an issue, because they really want to feel that satisfaction of solving something with real consequences. And you can still play the game like that. The problem is the DM just has to do a little bit more work. There's no longer, I'm going to defeat module X5. We did that, and I think it takes responsibility off of the players, responsibility off of the DM in those situations as well. This idea that it is literally just the dice and the wits of the player. And in those situations, I see the appeal of it. I do. It's more of like Tess and I play a game called Mansions of Madness, which is a Cthulhu style role playing game where the DM is the iPad, and it tells you where to go, and you get clues as you go through, and the map changes, and you got hundreds of these tiles and these things, and stuff happens. It's very cool, and it is you only have a very set number of things you can do, and I always go, well, I really just want to break down this wall. Why can't I set this on fire? Why can't I do, and that's always that's the nice thing about these situations. But in those situations, if you're a think outside of the box kind of person, being in one of those dungeon delves, it's not real great for you anyway, because you kind of feel stuck in, like, you only have these things you could do, because a lot of times a DM relying on those tools may not have the experience to kind of be able to go outside of that box. That being said, I absolutely would love to go through and run one of the old modules as a stream and see, with real consequences, real death, backup characters prepared. Tome of Horrors is one that I've never gone through. Tomb of Horrors, not Tome of Horrors. I've never gone through. I've never DM'd it or played through. I understand that even the newer version has some issues with a couple things, gender change and a few issues, which we could easily make sure don't get involved. But I would love to do that. The last experience I had with a dungeon like this, and I realize I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry, was back when I owned my
Plan
game store.
worked.
My my fiance at the time, she ran something which was a product put out by the 3.5 company AEG, I believe, called The World's Largest Dungeon. And this dungeon book was as thick as the Tolus book, if you're familiar with that. It's about 3 inches thick. And it had 16 8-fold maps. So you got to think that these maps fold out, 1, 2, 4. So it's 8. It folded up, it's the size of the book. It's an 8.5 by 11, but unfolded, it's 8 of those, and there's 16 of those maps, and they are still 1/16 of an inch per square, or something like that, or 1/8 of an inch per square. So you got to think that this thing, we played for a solid 3 months and never left the first map. And we were playing multiple times a week. So, but it got tedious, and the whole thing has rules, and it's got this whole history. You're stuck in this dungeon, and the problem is that we ended up starting to call it the world's longest hallways, because the first map is literally just a series of concentric hallways, and they had secret doors going from one hallway to the next, and like you would go, if you don't use that secret door and you go down this hallway, there's a trap that will do 12d6 damage to your first level character. And it's like, this is ridiculous. There's no point to it. So Lori, being a very, very good DM, she kind of pulled back a lot of that, and she helped us kind of push through and get to the next area. And but even with that, it felt like a lot of we're literally just trying to shove everything we can. They tried to put every monster from the original monster manual in there, and that to me is the epitome of this type of module game. It just becomes very tedious to be like, oh, okay, more goblins, all right, and a lot of times I sit there and go, why are they here? Why are there so many goblins here? Evidently, he didn't have answers for that. So anyway,
with that last comment though, the article that I was reading had a suggestion that I think when they were citing the dungeon delving aspects of 3.5, they were specifically, I think, talking about an element of description that was included in those delves.
Flavor text, okay.
And so the conceit that the author of this blog was getting to was, when you're designing a space. Ooh, good question, Tessa. I will work that in later. So the conceit was, when you are building an encounter space, a location where an encounter is going to take place, especially if it is meant to be the lair of a creature, that it is important to think about the fact that this space was chosen by that creature sometimes because it was advantageous to them. So when you're building encounters in spaces that are like the home turf, the writer was saying, remember, it can be very valuable to stack the odds in favor of the home team. Just in terms of the way you build the environment. Absolutely. and what's going on there, because there's a reason that thing is living there. It's not just like gonna be in a space where it's one giant room and there's nothing for it to hide in if it wants to hide, or there's like, it climbs walls, so there'll be ledges up high where it can watch you. Like, this idea of just pitting the players against something that they will soundly defeat quite easily is not necessarily in the spirit of what a actual monster hunt would be like. If you were like, think of almost like Witcher 3 is a good example, where you're going into those places, home turf sometimes, to hunt them because they come out and they attack people, and you have to go into their safe space, which is dangerous for you.
You got to think, they've defended this place against other things, other people, other creatures, and that's one of the other issues I have with things like World's Longest Hallways and World's Largest Dungeon, is that a lot of times you have one room that has, here's a bunch of goblins, and then one room over, you've got this really powerful beast and no explanation of why these two creatures somehow seem to live really close together, even down a hall or a cave. Nothing to divide them. No, we had an agreement that we didn't cross that line. It's like, really? Two evil, in those days, very, inherently evil races just cohabitating near each other,
Well, then at
for
that
no
point, you
mutual
look
benefit,
into
and
I was gonna say, at that point, you look into symbiotic relationships between people, between animals. You look into why things coexist when they normally would not. And I think you can come up with some fun concepts from the idea of coexistence based on mutual benefit.
yeah,
That would be unusual and interesting, and not necessarily throw the goblins under the bus
yeah.
or under the monster, as it were. Um, uh, I have a one shot planned eventually for Set in Vale that incorporates that concept of different races coming together that are normally isolated from each other just because they live in different ecosystems, and they all happen to exist in this weird intersection of these ecosystems. And at some point, generations back, they all decided, how about we all just like stick out together? There's a bigger thing trying
Yeah.
to eat us on the regular, so let's like, you guys are in charge of watching the babies of our species. You guys watch the sky because you can fly, and you guys watch the water because you can swim and kill things in the water. And so you just have like this almost this multicultural mix in a slightly more rural setting. I hesitate to say primal, but they're monstrous races, so I'm like, eh.
So
Continue.
let's, and this kind of here's my thought process. This got me thinking about one of the inherent species in the monster manual that actually has kind of this built-in symbiotic relationship, the gray render. The gray render often becomes the brute force for smaller, weaker creatures, and then they in turn feed it and give it comfortable living and stuff like that. So and the gray render is not a very intelligent creature, but it has a tendency of kind of connecting with other people. And I thought that this was a great philosophy. Then it came to my mind this idea of servant races, and I want to kind of touch on that and ask you what your feelings are about this concept that exists in a lot of places of races that inherently want or need to serve. Two that come to mind are the Hyperions from Star Trek and the Ood from Doctor Who.
I'm also thinking kobolds or Kenku. They get written in the canon as being sort of like subservient as well.
Okay.
If you're gonna get into D&D.
But I think with like the Hyperions and the Ood, they actually need, like, they almost have like an inherent need to serve, or at least they're played off like that in different ways. I know the Hyperions at least get paid for it, but like the Hyperions connect with their masters to the point that they of the until the master's death. And will never leave their side, and will I don't know how I feel about that as a concept for a race as a whole.
I don't like the generalization. I don't like there being that's the only way these people can be. There could certainly be a community, but I think one of the problems with wanting to make an exception to the rule is you have to make sure you provide the rule first. And if you first introduce a concept as the divergence from the concept, people will assume your divergence is is the norm. So you have to be really careful when I've had situations before where, we have someone introducing a new like a city that is populated entirely by one particular race. It's a monoculture, and they're a certain way, and it might be a little problematic, but they're like, oh well, most of them aren't like this. This just happens to be the one that's completely evil. But it's the first time you've ever encountered one of those things, and you can't disconnect from that first impression.
Yeah, it's difficult.
So you have to make an effort. If you're gonna build an exception, you have to show the rule first.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that is how I think it needs to be done, or at least everyone. If you want it to be truly impactful, I think it's worthwhile having that be a longer game thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean that in the sense of not like a campaign, but like you have to play the long game and let the assumption exist, and then provide that exception or that divergence from that assumption.
Right.
Yeah, that's where I am at that. I don't I will probably have to simmer with this idea that I just had. But I wonder what you could do with swapping the dynamics of a society in which the people that do manual labor or the people that do more service industry labor are the people that are assumed to have the higher authority because they do the things that have to be done in order for everything to function. The higher level stuff is kind of secondary. It's like society will crumble if we don't exist to do this stuff. And
Right.
there's just this. I don't know if that's a thing you can do. I think the power dynamics there might be just inherently you can't separate that. Maybe I don't know.
I'm sure that
It might seem
somebody
a
can
little
do it.
pandering.
I don't know how to do it,
Sure,
but I'm sure it is
that
possible to do.
it definitely feels like something that is slightly out of my lane even. Like if somebody wants to decolonize a culture and have that be an element of it, I'd be curious to see. It's at least an intriguing thought experiment. Um, so yeah, I probably would have to ruminate on the idea for a little while.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I am I know that there is a trend that I tend to agree with about if we're gonna be if we're gonna be playing fantasy games, if we're going to be exploring things, slavery is bad is done. I don't need proof that slavery is
Yeah, yeah,
bad,
yeah.
so let's explore other
Well, no, I
themes.
understand that, but you
Yeah.
know, and the point what that I was trying to come up with was, you know, is so what is something that humans, you know, have a thriving need to do? You know, we often, you know, besides, you know, the standard eat, sleep, and you know,
Economically
procreate.
dominate each other.
Well, I was thinking in a fantasy setting
Not naturally.
specifically, but a lot of times exploration is a very human trait in like
Sure.
in a lot of places, Star Trek and
Expression is a big
yeah,
one.
expression like musically and artistically.
Any kind of craft, I think
So you
is
know
a big
these are
one.
things that a lot of times humans are kind of attributed with that other species. A lot of times in science fiction, things don't necessarily you know
That's
see. So
yeah,
I just
that's
think
a
that's not necessarily compulsory though, but it is a desire. It's something that people want to do. I just don't know if there's a, you know, if there's even a reason in an evolutionary sense that a race would, you know, develop the desire to be a subservient race that would always want to
yeah,
serve. It just doesn't really make sense.
it gets crunchy too for me, like big time. Even just like the way you phrase that last bit, I'm like,
I
oof.
was purposefully trying to
Li-
phrase it that way, but yeah, I was trying to make it in the worst light
yeah.
possible because, but I just don't know if it's even makes sense because I look at like with the Hyperions in Star Trek, it's not I know it never really questions. They say several times that they you know the entire race they always want to serve, and you don't really think about it, but it does. It gets a little crunchy, it gets a little weird.
Okay,
So Gray Renders is similar.
Heath just brought in an interesting idea. They not necessarily that service industry people would be a commodity, but that they hold an inherent value as such. They're basically free agents. If you want someone to be able to care for you or to do the really pivotal foundational work that has to be done to have a society at a certain level of hygiene, a certain level of industry, you need to treat them well.
Right.
And
And I think
they
that's
have the
where,
capital.
yeah,
They have the value. And so that idea that Heath just brought up, the idea of it would be more potentially damaging to another, like say to another house, if you were to hire their staff
right. I
and
think
like just dick them over.
yeah. No, I like that idea a lot. That makes a little bit more sense. I think the big part of it is, you know, with the Ood, they're always mistreated. That's kind of the big thing with the Ood. With the Hyperion, though, I think what bothers me about it is the idea that they bond for life to their master. It's this very almost one-sided sort of codependent relationship that they need to be with and at the side of their the person they serve. I think that is where it feels very much like a compulsory relationship, one-sided relationship, and in those situations that's not a very good thing. I think that's
No.
exactly it. That's
Yeah.
kind of why with the gray render, going back to that,
Mhm.
I like the idea a lot more of a gray render kind of being a free agent. And if you could convince a gray render that you could offer it more, then it might come and hang out with you and help you defeat the kobolds that it was just once serving.
Yeah, it's an intriguing idea of fealty, like providing incentive to something that is not a god, something that is just much lower tier, but is still bigger and better than you
Yeah.
are, and you have to try to make that
And
effort to form an
yeah, and
alliance.
I know couples and even non-couples, there's people who live together who do power exchange relationships, where one person gives complete control over the other person to basically tell them exactly what to do because they need or want that in their life. And that's okay because again, they can always take that away. They can always go, okay, well, no, because they really have the power there, and that goes back to a lot of the BDSM discussions and how role playing is a lot like BDSM.
Well,
In when you talk
because
about
life
consent
is about
and
yeah, life is
well,
about
life is
consent.
about it. Yeah,
Say.
life is like BDSM. You never know. Never mind. So yeah, I think that's a good point. I think overall that's a good. We talked that out. I like it.
So my wallet is so sad and so tempted right now by a thing I just found. Yes, thank you, Tessa. For anyone who doesn't know, I have been thinking a lot about a panel topic called table topping about consent and power dynamics and agency at the tabletop gaming table. And I'm just so proud of that title. Anyway,
I,
um,
I
so
go ahead.
so the thing that I'm like I want it. Give this thing to
All
me.
right.
Is a DM's Guild a publication that that came out recently, called Master of None: Multi-classing Variants and Role Playing Suggestions. It is and we try to do this, um, but the idea of the book, it is a book about meaningful multiclassing. If you want your character to
Sure.
multiclass, here are some avenues you can take to make it more than just I want to dip into rogue because I
Yeah.
get an ability, including some things that I think are really interesting, that you could provide a character with a multiclassing opportunity, but they never actively are multiclassing. You're just giving them the flavor. It's almost like a boon you'd be giving them that gives them the feeling of multiclassing, but they're not actually changing anything mechanically. So the example that they gave in the article that I read, it is a an example of a cleric, and say you're a cleric of a particular god. Say it's a nature god, or how about this? It's a winter god. It's like a god of the cold, and you wake up one day and just something seems to feel different. Something has shifted a bit, and you start finding that your spells, the powers that you have suddenly started being twinged a little bit with greenery, even though you're normally like all ice all the time.
Right.
Um, because your
Wintergreen.
god, because your god entered into an alliance or married another god, and
Oh, neat.
therefore you're like their stepkid, and you got some powers, and you give that cleric a few nature spells. These are now in your cleric spell list. Have at it. Use them, don't use them, but these are now things that you feel like you have access to. And that's not a multi-class. That's just
I like
I
that.
gave you a few extra spells that you can cast, and these happen to flavor with the way that the I'm ignoring chat right now. But anyway, so I really love this idea because you and I have talked a little bit about this idea of gods being more there are different ways of interpreting mythological creatures, or mythological deities. You could have them be these sort of abstract forces of nature that people have personified that maybe are just bigger than you can even imagine. They're just like they're gods. Or you could treat them more as actual day-to-day impacts on people's lives, and they're basically like corporations that people sign
Yeah.
up for, and there is a tangible
Which is exactly how I was going to answer Heath's point in thing. If a god dies, it creates a power vacuum. Other gods will take their followers and just kind of
yeah.
usurp them and
Well, because then think about it. You have a dream, you have a vision as a cleric of this foreign power that seems to have some hint of your former god, but it's only a hint. It's almost as if that power's been siphoned from your god, and you are told by this new deity to come to my temple because you now serve me and we need to indoctrinate you into our religion.
yeah.
What do you do with that?
And
Like, your
some
god's
people might
gone.
embrace it, and some people might not. I think
Yeah,
it's-
you might
I think
you might
this is a very interesting concept. The idea of more things happening with the gods. 'Cause I was just thinking as soon as you said two gods get married, I went, how would people find out? I guess they'd have to have visions and things from
you'd have
the clerics and
prophets
prophets, and
yeah, it would
that'd
come
be kind
down
of very
from the
cool.
higher ups or
So
from yeah.
this actually goes
very
into
interesting.
another topic I wanted to talk about. Something that came up, and this is not something. And this may be one of those things that somebody has said to me before in the past that was not presented in a way that sunk into my brain, or I just wasn't ready to hear it. So I apologize if anybody out there, I'm talking more specifically to my wife, has brought up something like this before and I just didn't grab onto it until now. So somebody the other day was talking about not assigning domains to clerics or to gods.
Okay.
And so literally you choose the god you're going to follow, and then you choose the powers that god has given you or granted you, and you decide how to use those to serve that god. And so there is no more getting stuck in this, well, I have to choose between these two domains because I want to serve this god. Like, no, this god is chosen, the god of life and sun has chosen you and given you grave and death. How are you going to use those to serve this light god? And it's like you become maybe their enforcer. You're like, I'm the one that hunts down the evil and destroys them. That's why he gave me the power of death. Or, whatever. The idea being that you can interpret it different ways at that point, because the concept is that every cleric, every paladin, every divine caster, God needs representatives that will do it all. They don't just need people that will only do these one or two things, because if they're trying to succeed in life in some way. I was so excited about that. Plus, it would have saved us a shitload of time when creating all the gods in Vale. Also, we could stop creating gods in Vale because we wouldn't need all the combinations. But it would help simplify a lot of things.
What about doing a religious reformation or something in Vale?
Maybe, yeah.
That the idea of either that or just the region we're in. I mean, obviously we're in Ashport, so it's not quite the same, but we didn't talk a ton about religion except for Wayuna in Valdara.
In Valdara, so I actually did this on purpose. In Valdara, this continent that has Ashport and all of the more steampunk-like aspects, we're in an industrial revolution, an arcane industrial revolution. So religion is kind of falling back a little bit in the day-to-day lives of people. They're still there, they still worship and all of that, but they're just not as involved, not as big. Whereas we go to the other continent, which I just blanked on, where Countless Heroes exists. I specifically wanted the gods to be a lot more involved and to be kind of more still active in the cultures of that continent, because they haven't kind of brought into this new industrialized, more modern world. I did that very specifically on purpose, was to try to keep that to keep those separate, so we had options for how you might want to run your campaign within our world.
Cool. No, I'm down. But yeah, so I interesting. So that's a very tumultuous relationship with a god, Heath. The idea of basically it doesn't matter to what purpose he's serving, but it matters that he's causing destruction. That's okay, I'm just gonna go find some bad dudes and wreak
Right,
fucking
yeah.
havoc.
I think that's
But the moment
exactly
you
it. I think that's why
choose
it
over war, you are punished.
when yeah, and when it comes down to this idea of being able to have whichever domains, being granted whichever domains your god needs you for, first off, it allows the opportunity for people to switch domains in the middle of a campaign. So if
Mhm.
somebody gets to a certain point and they realize that I am not performing my mission correctly, maybe when you level up, they have the opportunity every 4 levels or whatever to swap out a
To
domain
adjust, yeah,
and to
adjust their
change a
domains.
domain. And your god's like, no, 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 you're, and that kind of goes along with what you were saying. This idea of, here's some new stuff. It's like, no, 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 no. Your path is changing. Here's a vision. Here's this moment. I'm changing your path. I need you to do something else now. But also, it kind of I don't remember what the point was. Anyways, that was good. That was a good point enough, I guess. I just forgot what the other point was. So
Yeah, Heath mentioning it would be really cool to have a non-homebrewed mechanic to adjust
I remember what I was gonna
subclasses
say.
on the fly.
Yeah, what I was going to say
Due to
was
character development.
yeah, what I was going to say was at that point it becomes very important to understand the dogma of the religion. Like, what does this god want to accomplish? Because whatever powers they give you, you need to use to try to accomplish those goals. So it actually becomes, I think, helps focus a lot more. You can hear me? Hello? 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 Nothing changed. They can hear me, so it's just you. It's you. I can't hear you. Anyway, so it becomes very important, audience, to the dogma. Taffy, taffy, silly putty. Don't mix up your silly putty and your taffy. Bubblegum, the old Calvin and Hobbes joke. He's got bubblegum in one pocket and silly putty in the other. He doesn't know which is which. But it becomes very important to understand the dogma of the religion and to understand what the god wants to accomplish, because whatever powers they give you, you then have to kind of apply and focus on that. So yeah.
How did that?
What happened?
I don't know. I didn't
Okay.
do anything. It just came back.
That's all right.
Okay. Might have been a disc. Maybe the Discord server was changing on me. I don't know. Anyway, hi everybody.
Angela agrees.
Well, so what were you talking about? Yeah, sure, totally.
Just specifically the idea that you have to understand the dogma of the religions, because if you get these powers, you have to kind of use them. It helps you focus more on what the religion or what the god wants, as opposed to, I have these nifty powers I'm going to use, and just by using these powers, I am serving my god.
So I totally bought that multi-classing thing because it was on sale and it had a $3 off coupon, so I got it for $11. So I was like, okay.
I was just about to say she'll have it before the end of the thing.
Because we're already talking about it. Sure, totally.
So we had some questions, I think, since we're down to the last 15 minutes.
Heath, not to sing the praises of this too much, but if you check out the link that I put in chat, there is an entire section about modular class building. So you should go look at that. Because I think that might satisfy a little bit of the idea of adjusting your subclass as you go. Because if they've modular, yes, Kermit flailing. But yes, I'm very excited. So I'm gonna go read this, and we'll probably talk about it next week after I get a few more ideas under my belt.
And she just turns off her camera and disappears.
Bye.
I'll read it right now. Yeah. Did we want to continue? Do you have more to talk about on this, or do we want to go to Tessa's question earlier?
I really want to explore this idea of other ways to provide. The cleric is the one that I had the best grasp of, because having an outside force that adjusts, and then whatever the politics of a god would be, that would change what you are. But I really am curious about what some of the other than just you decide to train in something else for an extended period of time. I don't know how the other subclasses, if there's anything equally as interesting as what the cleric or the paladin, for that matter. Both of them probably the similar mechanic, since they're both divine based. But yeah, the idea of the only other ones I can think of are the other casters. Warlocks and sorcerers could also have something happen. Whether it's a sorcerer of a certain origin, and then at a certain age you come of age and you have to make a choice, or you get impacted by your lineage in a way that could change what you do, or a warlock having a very similar situation. Could you imagine a warlock finding out that their patron has had a corporate takeover and they've purchased all of their contracts,
That'd be
and
amazing.
you now work for this person?
That'd be very interesting.
That's very infernal. That's very devil to
Make
find
sure
out
that
that
your players would be okay with this before you start
yes,
doing things
yes,
like
yes,
this.
yes, yes.
A lot of times, players get very attached to their patrons.
Yes, they do. You would talk to them about, well, yeah, how do you feel about a situation, and when, oh yeah, so like, oh my god, like baseball cards. I have 2 Dragonborn for your gnome. That is kind of great though. That the
2
idea
4th level
of
Dragonborn fighters for your 8th level gnome. That's fine.
Warlock
I
them
guess it'd
on.
be warlocks.
Gotta pack them all.
Warlock them on.
Gotta pack them all. Anyway, let's talk about the question that Tessa posed. So, thank you all for helping create the next promotional campaign for Packless patrons. It's gonna be a Pokemon joke. That's cool, Autumn. That's very cool to give the DM control over that, because of sort of the inherent lack of agency that a warlock has. I think is very true to the experience, and could in some circumstances be very, very fun to play. Just, you're adrift because you don't have any control over what happens to you. You've already signed up for that sort of relationship by virtue of building a warlock. So yeah, I really like that. So Tessa's question was, what do you do when you're just not in the headspace to play, or you're not in the mood? Was that part of it?
I don't remember.
Hold on.
It was something like that. How do you push through when you're just not in the headspace? I believe it was.
Yes. When you're just in the worst headspace to run a game, how do you push through? Well, part of the question is, do you have to?
I was going to say my biggest my answer to this is going to be the same as always. It depends.
Yeah. If you are contractually obligated and getting paid to do so, what's the situation there?
Yeah. So let's assume that we're talking about a situation where you have to run this game. One of the big issues is let's talk about the other one first, because I think that's going to be faster. If you are not in the headspace to run the game, you don't have to run a game if it's a normal table game.
Communicate with your players and let them know.
Communicate with your players, exactly. Maybe still get together and hang out if you want, but you don't necessarily have to run. You can play board games, do whatever. If you are feeling guilty, you're going to feel a little guilty. That's fine. But if you're feeling guilt to the point where you are scared not to run the game, or you feel so worried that they're going to be angry or upset, find new players. Please don't play with people like that. People like that should be understanding that you may need a night off, and it may happen at the last minute. People who get frustrated at you or not, that's not a very good friend if they're going to get angry or frustrated to a serious degree like that. So try to be careful, and with who you're playing with if you can. I know that there's been times in my life when I didn't get to choose who I played with. I had to play with the people I could, and I put up with a lot because I wanted to play. So I understand that it's not always possible, but just try to find better people if that's a concern. If that's not a concern, just take the night off. Play board games, stay in, don't go out, whatever. If you are contractually obligated, that's, I think, more the question here is, how do we push through on nights like that? My biggest answer is, whatever headspace I'm stuck in, I've got to find a way to get out of that. And one of the best ways to do that often is just sitting down and talking to my friends. Asking them to get on the call early. Say, I'll start the call half an hour before we normally start. Say, anybody can come on, get on. I don't even often tell them that there's anything wrong. Just sit there and start talking. And by the time half an hour has passed and it's call time, I'm ready to go. That's how I do a lot of times, because a lot of times it's life that's just kind of just falling in around me, and it just helps. Also, creating something that I'm very proud of helps. Shenanigans 2.0 here is exceeding my expectations for what I had wanted almost across the board. From the art to the music to the tech gremlins. Even though we had them last night, really wasn't that bad. To everything is really the audience. Our income, everything is just kind of exceeding my expectations, and it's because we've been working hard for 2 years now on Shenanigans to get it to this point, and starting a new campaign has allowed us to create something we're very proud of, and being proud of it and wanting, makes me want to get into it every single week, and making sure that every session is fun and exciting and upbeat. Now, yeah, we're gonna have a slog. It's gonna happen. There's gonna be an episode I walk away from going, that wasn't my best. It's okay. Minimizing those and just trying to have fun in the moments helps a lot. And I think that's that's a big one. Is fuck yeah or no. If I'm not a fuck yeah, I don't want to do it. But Shenanigans 2.0 is so much a fuck yeah. I'll never. I shouldn't say never, but I'm constantly wanting to do it. I already want to play it.
You find it hard to imagine not wanting to.
It's very hard to imagine not wanting to play it. But yeah, even in a bad headspace, and a lot of times I may want to play Shenanigans, or whatever, Countless Heroes or whatever, but I want to do it, but my head's like, no, you can't. And in worst case scenario, if you're in that bad of a headspace, you can take a night off. You can always take a night off from your game. Yeah, somebody else can run a game. You can take a break and they can run the whole stream, whatever. You don't necessarily have to be there. We're not indispensable DMs. We're not going to be. The world is going to continue turning if we don't run our game, and that's okay. That actually, what Heath just said about allowing the players to take the reins and things, that is something that I was going to say from a DM bottoming side. Also, if you are not as we were just talking about tabletopping DM, if you're more of a bottom in life, you can let the players take the reins more often. Inside of a game, there's actually whole systems designed around the players making a lot of the decisions. Chaotic Goodness is one of those shows that they ran a system. I'm not sure if it's this season. I think it was last season, where the players did almost all of the work with the storytelling, and the DM was really just there as kind of an arbiter. And it was a very cool system. It's not for me. It's not the type of system I want to run, but it might work extremely well for somebody who's more of a I guess a bottom. It's a great way, a DM bottom, a dungeon bottom. Is a great way to kind of. I did not coin that term.
Dungeon bottom sounds like you didn't shower enough when you were adventuring. It's like swamp boot or something.
I got it. I'm good. Whew. Oh, that was almost soda all over my MIDI. Holy crap. Dungeon bottom. Yeah. Oh, I got the dungeon bottom. Oh no.
Sorry. So
that's it. That's what got the follow. All right. Woohoo. Thank you for the follow. Really appreciate that.
Oh my god. Anyway, last thing before we go into the cash corner.
Corner.
I am glancing a little bit into the multi-classing variants document, and there's a really interesting system in here, and I don't know the history of the system, but it's an XP based multi-classing system, and I don't know if it replaces. I assume it replaces a level, but they have an entire set of features for the different class combinations. So a bard cleric has a particular feature you get. A bard warlock has a particular feature. But you're earning points. You're basically earning XP points through your story. And when you reach 100 points in a particular, you have the opportunity to multi-class into a class. But the points are earned based on what you want to multi-class into. So the examples were like earning barbarian points. The character initiates combat out of anger. The character has fought in combat without armor or without an unarmored feature.
Almost like an achievement system, where it's like you have to kind of do these things, but you can do it multiple times.
So they're giving 25 point, 10 point, 15 point examples, and when you hit 100 in that particular class, you can choose to multi-class into that.
That's cool.
And based on what you were previously, the thing you multi-class into can affect you. So the example I saw was a Fury caster. If you go into Barbarian, you take a level in Barbarian as a wizard, you get Rage of the Page. You can flip through your spell book while raging to maintain your rage. If you do this for a minute, you can swap 2 of the spells you prepared that day. Like, there's just neat little things you can do with the multi-class. It's very, very cool. Highly recommend you check it out. If you haven't seen it, Master of None multi-classing variants. Here is the link. And there's a $3 off coupon in the description. So click that if you want to get it, because it's $3 off, already a sale. So you should pick it up because it's cool. Not sponsored, just I found it yesterday and thought it was really cool.
I actually did for one of my games, my last in-person game, the original Fires of Aldara. I did. I created achievements. I created little printed up little.
I have stickers.
Bars,
I have to bring them to WonderCon with me. I have achievement stickers. I'm going to give them to Andy to use during the thing. They're like teacher stickers, but they work so well for role-playing games because one's like kept your cool, or like yeah, it was really, really fun. And the idea of like giving someone basically a report card and give them stickers when they do stuff during the game.
Yeah, and so like rolling, on rolling 2 20s on a whatever was, and rolling 2 1s on a disadvantage was, or an advantage was, So there were a lot of really cool, fun things. I came up with a list of my own and found some online. It was really neat. But yeah, the achievement stickers, there was a whole a person came out with a whole bunch of badges or achievement stickers or something. And if, people at button makers and things have done similar things. A very cool idea. Be great for I think for professional dungeon masters. Matter of fact, we should do an entire professional dungeon master show. For
Heath, thank you for joining us.
Keith, let us know when you have a Wednesday. Seriously.
Yes,
or let's do a power hour another time. The great thing about the power hour, we can do it anytime. So let's do, Wednesday afternoon
real power
or something.
Hours in
let's
your
do
heart.
All the time. So yeah, let's do that. But yeah, achievement feats. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. A lot of really neat things that we can do to help jazz up the tables and talk about things from the more professional aspects. But anyway, that is I think we're done. Pretty much.
Yeah, I think so.
Except for our other thing.
Okay, Logan, do you have Peanut? Because I can't.
No, I don't.
Tessa, you have to give him Peanut if you're home.
No.
Logan, catch. Oh man, you missed. Darn. We passed it. It wasn't on screen. Well, there's your problem, Tessa. Why'd you redeem it if you knew for a fact you couldn't pass it?
We need to turn that one off when we're not on that stream. That needs to be added to our checklist.
Right. So, anyway, Peanut will assist me with the power hour. The power hour cash corner. Okay. So, no, he's right here. He's fine. So we are the power hour. We are the Nerdsmith power hour, which might, in those of you particularly observant, might intuit that means we are a member of the Nerdsmith network. Logan and I are both creators. Perfection. Okay, anyway, we are both creators and directors at Nerdsmith. We're on the directors team, and we help produce shows for the network. If you like what you're watching and want to see more of it, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/nerdsmith. You can find a bunch of bonus content there and be a part of the group of awesome fans and fellow creators that help support our network and keep the lights on, help us, pay for things like WonderCon, which we're all, fingers crossed, going to be able to attend, even though another con got canceled today. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how that goes. There will be an unofficial Anaheim nerdy congregation, regardless of if WonderCon happens. But fingers crossed that WonderCon is still happening. It happens the weekend of April 10th. All things hygienic and lucky, we will do that. Can't hear you.
Not talking to you.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so we're part of Nerdsmith. Please check us out. You can find out more information about all of our shows at nerdsmith.org. Oh my god, he's already bigger. Stop feeding him watermelon. It's just water weight. So we are also sponsored by two incredibly cool companies. World Anvil. World Anvil is an oh god, there's more of them. Oh no, there's more of them. We are sponsored by World Anvil, an incredibly cool campaign management software, which just released a new feature for their guild members. So here is another reason to sign up as a guild member and not just a free member of World Anvil. They just opened family trees as a functionality. I am very excited by that because, Logan, I would like to make a hamster family tree for shenanigans.
Oh god. All right.
It literally will just be a family tree of all of the giant space hamsters, starting from our first ones, Honey and something. I don't remember the other
Honey, one. I can't remember. Honey and something, and then
we'll look it up. Sorry, hamster. What did I say? Did I say something else? Or are you just correcting chat? You're correcting chat. So yeah, please check out World Anvil. They have an amazing suite of features for free and for the guild members. There's even more stuff, personalization features that come out. You get to see them and work with them first. So the family tree stuff is only available to guild members right now. And I don't know if they're when or if they're going to roll out to free. You can definitely access it now. And their Discord community is amazing, and you can find out all the stuff that they come out with. Demetrius posts very regularly with new features and new fixes and stuff like that going on around the World Anvil community. It's an incredibly creative and energizing place to be. There's just so much going on, and you can find all sorts of inspiration and share your worlds with your public or your friends or everybody.
Did you catch all the names in the? I know you're the first one that thought that female astronauts. Did you catch the male hamsters' names?
No,
oh, okay.
I didn't know that one. I didn't catch the male
It was from Tessa will correct me. I just completely spaced it.
That's appropriate. I like
the guy who doesn't like musicals. It's from the business song, and the guys who doesn't like musicals.
I didn't see it recently enough to remember the ensemble names. I like Jesse's idea that an NPC thing where nobody correctly recognizes it as a hamster. Wait, is that a gopher? Your possum over there.
Hamsters can have short hair.
No, the idea though that whenever we encounter NPCs and we have Peanut, they incorrectly identify what kind of rodent it is. Where's your armadillo? It's a hamster. We are also sponsored, really quick, we are also sponsored by Die Hard Dice, who make beautiful metal and polymer dice sets. They're constantly coming out with new pretty colors. We love them so much. If you haven't used our coupon code yet, I know for a fact that Matthew Siebert used it recently. You can get 15% off your next or your first purchase at Die Hard Dice with DRPG. Discover RPG lives on, by the way, on my TikTok channel and Twitter. I've been posting my my random story prompts there using the Once Upon a Time card game and a book of random story prompts, and just been posting those for you guys to inspire and share your ideas for how to incorporate them into your writing or your RPGs. So please check us out. It's Discover RPG Show on Twitter and Discover RPG on TikTok. And I'm the one in charge of that, so I'm just posting a bunch of random stuff, which is very appropriate for TikTok. By the way, Logan, my favorite pool so far was seeking a simpler way of life. A reformed hitman joins the mafia.
Nice.
It's like, okay, they drug me back in. They just keep pulling me back.
That's funny.
All right, everybody. That has been the Nerdsmith Power Hour. I am Angela. This is Logan, and we hope that you've enjoyed your lunch break with us and that you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and please do us a favor and be good to each other. We'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.